Harry immediately became nervous. The mini-submarine they were on didn't have any weapons. If they were discovered by the council, they would be in a hopeless situation. He quickly asked, "What flag is on the ship?" Harry was still fantasizing about it. Maybe it was just a passing ship. "It's a ship from the council." Wayne pursed his lips and said the most worrying thing. Michaela asked with a worried look, "Did they notice us?" Wayne shook his head. He really didn't know. They were still very far away, but the ship opposite them was heading straight toward them. It wasn't certain whether they had been discovered or not. "If we dive now, they might not see us." Callie immediately opened the ballasts. Since the council ship had arrived, Harry and the rest could only choose to dive. The power equipment inside the submarine immediately began to suck in water and quickly dove into the sea. A violent pinging sound suddenly rang out. Such a sharp but enormous sound made the people in the submarine cover their ears. "Ugh, the other party's activated a sonar. We're going to be exposed," Callie said. Harry's eyes widened. "Then we can only fight with our lives on the line. It's better than dying underwater," he said. However, Callie said, "Don't panic. We still have hope." After saying that, she operated the submarine for a while and said to Harry, who didn't understand, "When we were building the submarine, I had some devices made for this exact situation." "Why didn't you say so earlier? You scared me," Harry said. Callie shook her head. "Because of the limited time, the device was made too hastily. I can only use it once." "Now is the most critical moment. Hurry up and use it," Harry said. Callie responded and then said, "Release the sonar bait first." After saying that, she pressed a switch. A launch port was opened outside the submarine and a device fired into the sea. After quickly leaving the submarine, it began to simulate the movement of the submarine's engine. On the other side of the submarine, Callie began to silently sail and barely made a sound. Even Harry and the others became silent and didn't say a word. Their breathing was very careful. At this time, above their heads, there were sonars screeching. If a whisper was heard, or even a cough, the sonar technician would know. Finally, the bait that was shot out was effective. The ship of the council was lured away, and it was getting further and further away. Only then did Harry and the others heave a sigh of relief. They increased the power of the submarine and continued to sail. After this round, the deeper they went into the encirclement, the more careful Harry became. Only after he passed through the encirclement and entered the underground river did he finally relax. Although the underground river was quite dangerous, compared to the open sea and the council, it was nothing. After returning to the cave, Michaela saw all the work that Harry and Callie had done. Curious, she asked, "Is this where you've been hiding?" "Yes, it is. If June didn't have the cunning, we wouldn't have had the chance to turn the tables." Harry smiled bitterly. "I was wondering why you haven't come back. I see you've been busy." Michaela's expression became downcast. Harry quickly comforted her. "You've been running for days. You've lost weight. It's safe here now. Go and sleep." After saying that, he said to Wayne, "You too." "Harry, I'm not tired. Is there anything I can do here?" Wayne shook his head and said. Harry smiled. "There must be a lot of things, but you have to rest. Go. There are a couple of beds over there." Wayne received his orders and went to rest. He was actually incredibly tired, but he didn't want to show it in front of Harry and the girls. Michaela was exhausted and had been scared out of her wits. No matter what, she didn't want to rest by herself. She was afraid that she wouldn't be able to see Harry once she opened her eyes. Harry had no choice but to sit on the ground and hug her like she was a child, coaxing her to sleep. Only after Michaela fell asleep did he put her in the tent. After coming out, Callie asked, "Do you want to rest for a while too? After all, we've had a long few days." Harry waved his hand. "I can't rest. We still need to find June." "June is strong. She'll be okay. You have to believe she's okay," Callie comforted. Harry agreed. "I think so too. It's very likely that she's the council's prisoner." After saying that, a worried look appeared on his face. If the council couldn't find Harry, they would never let her go. On the one hand, they've sent a large number of people to search for Harry everywhere. On the other hand, they would interrogate anyone they could to find him. As Harry's personal bodyguard, June was undoubtedly the best target for interrogation. Therefore, Harry was worried that in order to find him, the council might torture June. In order to save June, I have to strengthen myself, so I can't rest. I have to perfect this place as soon as possible, Harry said firmly. Callie nodded. I'll help you. The underground shelter was no longer the same as when Harry first came. Previously, this place was a resource storage warehouse, but now it has become a production base of unprecedented scale. Because he had wasted some time picking up Michaela, the production line had slowed construction. Therefore, Harry couldn't relax. He couldn't rest just because he wanted to. He had to keep working. The faster he got the production line up and running, the faster he could attack the council and save June. The silent cave once again rang with the roar of machines. After returning to the cave, Harry and Callie restarted the equipment. According to their initial plan, they wanted to produce a large number of weapons and equipment here and slowly amass an army. Then, with an absolute numerical advantage, he could defeat the council. But now, Harry's plans have changed. Because June was very likely to have been captured, Harry didn't want to sit and wait. He wanted to create a batch of elite weapons and equipment and then launch a small-scale surprise attack on the council. The goal wasn't to cause as much damage as possible. Instead, it would be more surgical and kill the corruption at its source. Instead, he wanted to save June. As long as he could save June, Harry would be at peace. Therefore, when Callie was ready to start the production line according to her original plan, Harry stopped her. Change the plan. Callie was very puzzled. What's wrong? Harry shook his head and said, Nothing. I've just changed my mind. June is missing and I need to find her. Callie, who was helping by the side, hurriedly asked, How are you going to find her? Harry said with certainty, If she was taken away by the council, then she must be in the family valley. Are you sure? Callie asked. Harry nodded with certainty. That's about right. June is my personal bodyguard, and she was trained there. No one else in the world would be qualified to interrogate her but her own teachers. So, in order to figure out where we are, they had to take her to the valley? Callie asked again. Harry nodded. He was very sure of himself. The council wouldn't let just anyone interrogate June. In order to ensure the accuracy of the information, they would have to interrogate her personally. Callie, on the other hand, was anxious. Harry, your plan sounds reckless. They've decimated your forces. How do you expect to get her out of the valley? You're being rash. We need time to build up our forces. Going in before we're ready is suicide. Callie was persuading Harry to change his mind, but Harry was already determined. If he didn't save June, he wouldn't rest. Her persuasion was fruitless. Although Harry wanted to be reckless for once, it wasn't that he was completely unprepared. He wouldn't leave that second. He needed Callie's help to make some preparations. I had an idea before. If I let the bionic humans wear the power armor, its strength would increase exponentially. Therefore, in order to save June, we'll create a small team and send them in, Harry said. Callie opened her mouth and wanted to persuade him again, but she saw that Harry had already made up his mind. In the end, she still didn't say anything and did as she was told. The bionic human technology was already well developed. As long as the production line was arranged and the resources were in place, it would take no time at all to produce. Although the power armor was a technology that had been in the prototype phase, for Callie, it wasn't difficult to produce it in the cave. 2 days later, 20 bionic humans walked out of the production line. Together with the power armor, they looked rather impressive. Harry wore a power armor. In this battle, he was going to personally lead the team. Wayne was given a suit as well after he pestered Harry to let him go. The valley was thousands of miles away from the cave. There were many defenses between them. If Harry wanted to go there, he needed a flying vehicle with high speed, good stealth, and long-distance capabilities. The difficulty of this production was very high. Fortunately, Callie had already developed the technology for it, but before the production began, the attack of the council came. The only problem was that the only way out of the cave without being detected was by going underwater. Just like last time, when they used a submarine, the transportation tool this time not only needed to be able to fly in the sky, but needed to be like a submarine and move underwater. In addition, the operation in the valley needed to be quick. After success, they needed to evacuate immediately. Therefore, they needed to build the plane so that it could land and take off vertically. In order to create such a transportation tool that they currently didn't have, Callie and Harry worked harder than they ever did. The underground cave's production line operated for a full 10 days before they finally created a prototype. "We have no way of testing this new plane. If something goes wrong, there's nothing we can do." Callie still didn't want Harry to take the risk, so she gave him a warning. Harry had already made up his mind, so it would not change. "No need to persuade me. I've already chosen my path." After saying that, he directed all the enhanced bionic humans to sit inside the plane. Callie saw that she still couldn't persuade Harry, so she could only compromise. "Don't be in a hurry to leave. I still have one more thing here. Pack it up and take it with you." Harry asked cautiously, "What is it?" "A gift for the council." Callie became mischievous and mysterious. As she spoke, she pushed a large metal box over. It was about 50 centimeters wide and 2 meters long. Harry wanted to open it and take a look inside, but was stopped by Callie. "Don't open it. It's dangerous." "What is this thing?" Harry asked curiously. Callie said, "This is a nuclear egg." "What?" Harry was stunned. He didn't expect there to be such a dangerous thing in the cave. "Where did you get material to make this?" Callie said, "There are radioactive materials in the mines. A lot of it's underwater, so we're safe from their decay." Harry was overjoyed. "Can you make more?" He wanted to send a dozen of these eggs to the council to turn them all to ash. Callie shook her head. "Not for now. Creating this thing consumes too much electricity. The cave's converter doesn't have unlimited power." "Ah, what a pity," Harry sighed. He stopped fantasizing and pushed the killing machine inside. Before boarding the vehicle, Harry turned around and said goodbye to Michaela and Callie, who were still in the cave. "I'll leave this place to the two of you. Be careful not to be discovered. Wait for me to come back," Harry said. Michaela's eyes were filled with tears and didn't speak. Callie nodded and said, "Don't worry, I'll continue to produce equipment and wait for you to come back." "Then I'm off." Harry closed the cabin door. "Save June before it's too late!" Michaela cried. Michaela didn't know if he had heard her when the vehicle started to dive. This vehicle was loaded with 20 bionic human vehicles. The vehicle was shaped like a big cigar. They were 30 meters long, and they relied on the magnetic current propulsion system underwater. If they wanted to fly into the sky, they would use plasma propulsion. Because the energy provided by the super battery was greater than any engine in production, they could go much faster than any plane ever built. Moreover, it didn't need to run and take off like an airplane. It could completely take off and land vertically. However, because the plasma engine consumed a huge amount of energy, there was only enough energy for Harry to fly back and forth once. There was no way to replenish energy in between, which meant that if there was an accident, Harry wouldn't be able to come back. Apart from carrying 20 bionic humans, there was Harry and Wayne in the cockpit. If the rescue was successful, and June wasn't the only one they saved, it would exceed the number of people that could be on the plane. Harry could abandon the bionic humans in order not to be discovered by the council. Once the bionic humans were abandoned, they would all explode on their own, not even leaving a speck of dust for the council to research. Only by sailing from the underground river to the sea would this ship, which was named Dawn 2, be able to display its speed. It had a speed of 50 knots when under the water. This was faster than any submarine. Unlike the last time when he was carefully piloting the miniature submarine, this time, Harry didn't avoid the blockade at all. He just casually rushed through. The plane had been equipped with sound dampeners, so it could slip through, completely undetected. However, in order to ensure that no one would discover the location of the cave, it was best not to be discovered. The magnetic engine was different from a mechanical engine. It didn't make any sound when it was running. It was so quiet that Harry, who was in the driver's seat, could hear the sound of the undersea currents and the weak movements of the marine animals. After they sailed out of the blockade, Harry drove the vehicle to the surface of the sea. When they were about to rush out of the sea, he activated the plasma engine. Suddenly, a huge reaction force pressed everyone into their seats. The cigar-shaped Dawn 2 was like a rocket, that flew out of the bottom of the sea, soaring into the sky. "Harry, let me drive. You should rest and recover your energy," Wayne, who was sitting in the front passenger seat, suggested. "Okay, you can take the controls." Harry didn't stand on ceremony. He chuckled because he knew that the Dawn 2 could fly itself. It was all controlled by artificial intelligence, but it was still a prototype after all. It was good for Wayne to keep an eye on anything that might go wrong. If there was a problem, it would be easier to react immediately. Flying in the sky, he didn't need to think about what was on the ground. He just needed to fly in a straight line. Wayne had been to the valley once, so he knew how to get there. After flying for about 3 hours, they arrived at their destination. It was already dark at this time. This was by design. Although there were all kinds of advanced night vision equipment, the night was still advantageous for Harry's surprise attack. Looking at the familiar buildings below, Harry didn't descend quickly. Instead, he operated a small device in his hand and stared at the screen. The Dawn 2 circled above the valley a few times. Suddenly, a red dot appeared on the screen in Harry's hand. "Harry, there's a signal," Wayne said excitedly. The signal came from the tracking device in June's body. It could only be found when they were close. June's tracking device was installed in her teeth. It was the only way that the council wouldn't discover it and remove it. As for the other tracking devices, they were already taken away before June was taken to the valley. Harry had found June's location. It was a fortress made of hard stone, and there was only one passage. The half-meter-thick metal door was closed, and even a nuclear explosion wouldn't be able to destroy it. There were countless guards inside and outside. This was a dungeon that the council had built to imprison their most dangerous prisoners, and it was virtually impossible to break in by force. However, Harry wanted to break through this impossibility today because he had brought the strongest bionic humans he's ever produced. "Harry, how should we act?" Wayne asked. "It's a simple landing and assault. All we have to be is quick," Harry said without hesitation. "Let's land in front of that metal door. Let's move." After Harry finished speaking, the Dawn 2 descended. Because there was no sound at all, the guards here didn't expect that someone would land from the sky. So when Harry landed on the ground, it wasn't until the cabin door opened that they noticed them. The guards' mouths were wide open, and they looked at Harry in confusion as he rushed at them. He even let out a ferocious roar. "Charge! Leave no one alive!" The council didn't expect to be attacked here. Ever since the Parker family had become the most powerful family in the entire world, the valley that they had built their empire from became the most valued asset. The defenses were nigh impregnable and had never been attacked until now. Without any enemies to fight, the guards that had been stationed here were well trained but had become complacent. Now, Harry's sudden attack had caught them off guard. The guards had forgotten their duties and their training in an instant. They could barely move before they were crushed by Harry and his team. The first step of the operation went smoothly. Now, they had to get through the massive door. This was a titanium alloy door, which was 1/2 meter thick. It was impossible to crack it with brute force. Not even a nuclear bomb could break through. This was Harry's biggest obstacle in this mission. Therefore, Harry was somewhat anxious. If he didn't open this door before the other guards arrived, his rescue mission would fail. Just as Harry was at his wit's end, Wayne spoke up. "Harry, let me try." Harry asked curiously, "You have a plan?" Wayne smiled confidently. "Harry, have you forgotten who I am? I'm a super thief. There's no door in this world that I cannot open." It didn't seem like he was lying. Harry had no other choice but to let him try. "Then hurry up, we don't have much time left," Harry instructed. "Understood." Wayne nodded and walked forward to check the gate system. After a while, he smiled. "I've seen this kind of thing in a few vaults. Shouldn't take me long at all." Harry heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, there was good news. Wayne didn't disappoint him. He removed the panel from the wall and began fiddling with the electronics. After he crossed a couple wires and ripped out a component or two, Wayne placed the panel back on the wall. When he pressed the key again, the indestructible metal door slowly opened. "Be on guard," Harry shouted through the communicator. The others all became alert. They knew that behind this door were likely more guards. Harry had told them roughly how many people would be inside. His knowledge was outdated from when he was a kid, so he really didn't know what to expect. Sure enough, just as the door opened a crack, a storm of metal exploded from inside. Countless bullets rang against the door and whizzed through the air. Anyone caught in their hail of bullets would have been torn to shreds. Unfortunately, Harry and his team came prepared. He was wearing exoskeleton armor. No matter which angle he was shot at from, he could block the bullets. The sound of metal clanging could be heard. Sparks flew from the collision of metals as they withstood the bullet rain and walked through the door. The guards in the bunker were all dumbfounded. They had never seen anything like this. Because this bunker was only used to guard prisoners, the guards weren't equipped with powerful weapons. They didn't have anything that could pierce through the thick armor Harry and his team were wearing. They didn't stand a chance at stopping them. Harry very quickly finished off the guards behind the door and went deep into the bunker. He discovered something before he got past a few cells. Every cell was filled. They were all Harry's men, and they had all been tortured. Their expressions were dispirited, and their bodies were covered in wounds. When they saw Harry walk in, they raised their heads in shock. One by one, he recognized them, until he saw one face he could never forget. George. Harry? George suddenly raised his head, his eyes filled with surprise. Harry, is it really you? Why have you come here? George said in disbelief. George and his team had led an attack against the council in an attempt to keep Michaela safe. They were all captured or killed and brought to this prison to be tortured for information. They had been here for quite some time while Harry was in the cave. Every day, they were interrogated by the council and had long given up hope of escaping. Just now, there was a commotion outside. George felt strange. He had a faint premonition that it might be Harry coming to their rescue. George was touched and worried at the same time. Harry, why did you come here yourself? This is their stronghold. They'll kill you for sure. We're not worth risking your own life. The other guards echoed. That's right, Mr. Harry. Our safety doesn't matter, but you're different. Harry cut open the cell door that imprisoned them with one hand. The chainsaw on the wrist of the armor was very sharp. Even though this cell door was made of metal, he cut through it like it was nothing. Cut the crap. Is there anyone else that can move? If there is, pick up the enemy's weapons and prepare to defend against the reinforces, Harry said. Yes, Mr. Harry. I can still move, a man with glasses said. The wolf guard, who had suffered relatively light injuries, stood up one after the other and walked out. They picked up the weapons of the fallen guards and ran toward the entrance of the bunker. George stood in front of Harry and said, Harry, June is still at the bottom level of the bunker. I'll watch the front door. Quickly, go and save her. Harry nodded and patted him on the shoulder. I'll be back soon. Now wasn't the time to talk. Harry turned around and continued walking down. The interior of the bunker wasn't big. Harry freed his men as he went deeper. He walked all the way to the lowest floor. There were only 4 or 5 rooms here. The rest were all empty. There was only one room with the light on. There was someone inside, and it was June. He saw that she was covered with wounds all over her body. Harry's throat tightened. June, wake up quickly. It's me. I'm here to save you. Harry walked in and gently pushed the unconscious June. However, there was no reaction at all. At this moment, Harry's heart was about to stop beating. He took off the metal glove on his hand and reached out his trembling hand to test her pulse. He found it, though it was very weak. He surmised that her injuries had sent her into a coma. Harry gnashed his teeth almost to their breaking point. I'll make you all pay, he shouted. Harry wanted to sprint to the palace and tear each of the council members limb from limb. He kept his hatred in his heart while he carried June out of the cell and toward the surface. June's injuries were too severe. The members of the council hadn't been able to get any useful information out of her before she lost consciousness. Clearly, they had lost their patience and had just continued to beat her anyway. Harry had to wait to take his revenge. He needed to get June to safety and have her treated before it was too late. If he delayed it too much, it was very likely that even if the rescue was successful, June would die from her injuries. Harry gently carried June. He whispered in her ear, I promise I won't let you suffer anymore. I won't let you suffer again in the future. With that, he brought her back to the upper levels. As they approached the entrance of the bunker, The sounds of battle became more and more intense. Wayne was leading the bionic humans with him. George was leading a small number of people from the Wolf Guard to block the reinforcements. However, Harry's people relied on the terrain to guard the entrance of the bunker, and for a moment, both sides were in a deadlock. Harry's forces had been waiting for his return. They didn't need to continue guarding anymore. They could complete their plan. The aircraft, the Dawn 2, was at the side of the fortress gate. It was only a few dozen meters away. However, this short distance was a problem for Harry's people. The enemy was shooting at them from multiple positions. Anyone that ran for the Dawn 2 would be hit. However, Harry had already expected this would happen. He immediately ordered all the bionic humans to leave their power armor and attack the enemy. He used them to distract them so his people could get to the aircraft safely. The Wolf Guard were led by George and put on the power armor so they could reach the aircraft. By doing so, they would be safe from any stray bullets that would come their way. The aircraft couldn't hold everyone and the bionic humans. "Quick, put on the power armor and run towards the plane," Harry said quickly. George and the others didn't delay and immediately started to move. All of the Wolf Guard had been briefed on the power armor, and most of them had used the prototype, so they knew how to use it. They were safe from any enemy fire now. In order to keep the armor and the bionic humans a secret, Harry rushed to the enemy position and activated their self-destruct system. Following a series of violent explosions, the enemy was disoriented. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Harry and the others ran onto the aircraft. With the help of the rocket that took off in an emergency, the Dawn 2 shot into the sky amidst flames and explosions. The members of the council could only watch helplessly as Harry left. However, what puzzled them was that Harry's flying device didn't fly away directly after it rose into the sky. Instead, it circled around the valley, and in front of the frightened eyes of the people on the ground, a huge cylinder was thrown down from the flying device, and a small parachute opened in the air. "The big gift bag has been thrown down. Let's go," Harry said with a sneer. Wayne understood. He pushed the stick, and the Dawn 2 sped up and left. A few minutes later, a huge fiery light exploded in the sky above the valley. It was like the sun had appeared in the valley. After that, the scorching temperature melted everything nearby, and the shockwave that was thousands of times stronger than a hurricane destroyed all the buildings on the ground. When the light dimmed slightly, a huge mushroom cloud rushed into the sky and covered the stars. The Wolf Guard didn't know that Harry had access to this kind of weaponry. All of them cheered excitedly. The headquarters of the council had been destroyed. There was nothing more satisfying than revenge after they'd been tortured. However, Wayne, who was in the cockpit, saw a hint of sadness in Harry's eyes. "Harry, are you all right?" Wayne asked. Harry shook his head. "It's fine. I used to live here when I was a kid. It hurts that I had to destroy it." Wayne didn't say anything else. He couldn't comfort Harry. Besides, it was already a matter of life and death. Destroying this place to give a fatal blow to the enemy was the only thing that made sense to Harry. "Could do a lot better with more of these bombs," Wayne said. Harry laughed and shook his head. "It's not that easy. That's all we can make. We don't have enough raw materials." The people from the Wolf Guard began to calm down and even fall asleep. Soon, they fell into a deep sleep. During their time in prison, they were given very little food and nowhere comfortable to sleep. They had also been tortured day and night. If they weren't in peak physical condition, they would have died long ago. The aircraft fell into silence. Harry went to look at June again. Seeing that she was still unconscious, he couldn't help but feel anxious. Looking at the time, according to their speed, it would take 1.5 hours to return to the cave. Just as Harry was getting anxious, Wayne's shout came from the cockpit. "Harry, we've got a situation!" Harry quickly went over and asked, "What's wrong?" Wayne pointed to the radar screen and said, "There's an unidentified aircraft that's tracking us. It's most likely from the council." Harry suddenly sneered. "It seems like they didn't like our gift." "We should fly faster than them. Let's see how fast this thing can fly," Wayne said. Immediately, he accelerated the Dawn 2. The Dawn had been designed to transport people and fly fast. Callie never designed it with any weapons on board. If they were to be attacked, they'd have nothing but speed to defend themselves with. However, Just as Wayne started to accelerate, the Dawn 2 started to shake violently. Their speed began to steadily drop. Harry's heart skipped a beat. If the unidentified aircraft got any closer, Harry knew they would be attacked. The Dawn was such a big target, there was no way they could avoid any missiles or gunfire. As for now, there was a malfunction. Harry had no choice but to start the backup plan. "Wayne, you must fix the malfunction. Leave our new friend to me," Harry ordered. Wayne panicked. "Harry, there are no weapons installed on the Dawn 2. How are you going to deal with them?" "I have my ways. Listen up. If I don't come back, take them back to the sanctuary," Harry instructed. "What?" Wayne didn't know what Harry was going to do. He saw Harry open the cabin door. After a strong airflow rushed in, it made Wayne hold back what he wanted to say. Harry jumped off the aircraft. Wayne's facial expression changed dramatically. He didn't expect Harry to solve the problem like this. He quickly called Harry through the communication device. "Harry, what are you doing?" "Don't worry, my power armor can fly," Harry's words came. "But that's too dangerous. You can't risk yourself and put your life in danger." "If I don't take care of the plane chasing after us, all of us will be in danger. Hurry up and fix the malfunction." "All right, then." Wayne could only obey. Harry had been given a heavily customized version of the power armor. Not only was it equipped with a jetpack, but it was equipped with weapons. Therefore, in order to deal with the Council's airplane in the sky, Harry had to attack it with his own suit. Wayne was busy dealing with the malfunctions in the cabin, while Harry flew in the opposite direction of the aircraft. He flew towards their pursuer. Before he could see them, an opening mechanism appeared on Harry's shoulder, and a small missile shot out. After the radar screen in the helmet locked onto the enemy, flames shot out from the tail of the missile. It flew towards the incoming plane, but the enemy reacted quickly. It rolled a few times in the air and shot out large amount of flares. Harry's missile lost its target because of this, and it exploded in the air. The pilot of the plane seemed to be very angry and responded with his own missiles. Harry responded with his own flares. The battle between the two sides only lasted a few seconds. After this exchange of missiles, the distance between the two was close enough that Harry could see the plane without any help from his suit. Next, in this close-range dogfight, the threat of missiles became smaller. Both sides began using their onboard machine guns. Streams of bullets traced the starry sky. Although this was Harry's first time fighting in the air, with the help of artificial intelligence, he was able to fight at the same skill level as the pilot. Although Harry's power armor couldn't carry too many weapons, this was Harry's disadvantage. Sooner or later, Harry would run out of ammo, and he'd be just as defenseless as the Dawn 2. But at the same time, Harry's power armor was small and flexible. Both sides were in a stalemate in the sky. "Harry, I fixed the malfunction. You can come back now." Wayne's voice came through the communication device. However, Harry rejected it. "No, you take everyone and leave. I can't get away from them." "But Harry, your life will be in danger if you do this." "Cut the crap, hurry up and leave." "No way. What will you do if I leave? The power armor won't be able to fly forever." Wayne didn't agree. Harry ordered the AI on the Dawn 2. "Get my people out of here." "Harry, what are you doing?" Wayne was anxious. "When we go back, tell Callie to continue with the plan," Harry instructed. Then, he cut off the communication. Under the control of artificial intelligence, the engine of the Dawn 2 in the distance burst out with a strong light. Soon, it disappeared into the horizon. Now, Harry could focus all his attention on the plane. Looking at the power gauge, Harry had about 5 minutes left of the flight. What was even worse was that all of his ammo had been used up. However, Harry wouldn't give up. Even in such a disadvantageous situation, he would still fight with his life on the line. "Ha, come on. I've still got some fight in me," Harry said to himself. The plane on the other side seemed to see that Harry was defenseless. The pilot flew confident and flew straight toward him. It seemed like it wanted to give Harry a quick death at a close distance. However, he underestimated the capabilities of the power armor. Although he could still fly for 3 minutes, Harry no longer needed to. He used up all his energy and burst out with unparalleled speed. He rushed toward the plane. The two sides were charging at each other, and they crashed into each other in the blink of an eye. At the moment of impact, Harry clearly saw the pilot in the cockpit staring at Harry in disbelief with his eyes wide open. His eyes were filled with fear. A dazzling fireball exploded in the sky, and countless fragments fell to the ground like rain. In the cockpit of the Dawn 2, Wayne saw Harry's signal on the radar go out. He trembled and then collapsed onto his seat. In the sanctuary of Reflecting Moon Island, the two girls were pacing the cave. Suddenly, it was as if they had sensed something. "Did you feel that?" Michaela frowned. Ever since Harry had left the cave and went to save June, she'd not slept well. Now, she suddenly had an inexplicable feeling in her heart. The first thing she thought of was Harry. "That's just your mind playing tricks. Harry is going to follow the plan and he's going to come home to us." "Yeah, I hope everyone is safe," Michaela sighed. While no one felt sleepy anymore, they sat together and quietly waited for the Dawn 2. As the sky outside gradually turned white, in the underground lake of the cave, they heard the sound of bubbles. The Dawn 2 appeared on the surface of the water. Michaela and Callie immediately went up to greet Harry in excitement. After being frightened for the whole night, they finally saw Harry return safely. However, when the cabin door opened, Wayne and the wolf guard helped each other out of the cabin. June was carried out. When they saw that the rescue mission was successful, but everyone looked dejected, Michaela and Callie immediately felt that something was wrong, and a haze surfaced in their hearts. "Wayne, where is my brother?" Michaela asked. "Michaela." Wayne opened his mouth, but couldn't say anything else. Michaela immediately understood, and 2 lines of tears flowed out of her eyes. "How could this be? He has to be okay," Michaela muttered. "Michaela, it's all my fault." Wayne blamed himself. At that time, Harry ordered the AI on the Dawn 2 to lock controls and make its way back to the cave. Even if Wayne wanted to go back and find Harry, he wouldn't be able to do it. Michaela held her head and cried. Everyone stood where they were and lowered their heads. The atmosphere was gloomy. However, Callie still had that indifferent expression. She asked Wayne, "Tell me, what exactly happened?" Wayne repeated what had happened and told her where Harry and the plane were fighting. Callie took out the map and nodded. "Was it here?" "Yes, I'm sure," Wayne nodded. "Okay, take some people to treat June. There's a medical room over there," Callie said. Michaela looked up. "Callie, what are you going to do?" "I'm going to find Harry," Callie said. "But Harry..." "The signal disappearing from the radar doesn't mean anything. I made the power armor. I know what it's capable of, and I know Harry is alive." "What? Then I'll go too," Michaela said. Wayne and the people of the Wolf Guard were anxious. "Take us with you." Callie shook her head. "All of you stay here. You're all hurt. If you don't treat your wounds soon, you'll get worse. Bringing all of you along will be a burden." "Then bringing me along will be fine, right?" Michaela said. "You should stay here. June's injuries are too severe. You must stay here and take care of her." Wayne still wanted to insist. "I'm not hurt, right? Take me with you." "You're the only one who can still move here. If you leave, who will protect the rest?" Callie then packed up some equipment and essential items and walked up to the Dawn 2. Seeing that everyone was still looking at her worriedly, she smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'll bring Harry back." After saying that, Callie started making some changes in Dawn 2 to start it again. Once completed, it again sank into the water. Ever since Harry was attacked by the Council, it had been a long time since he slept so deeply. Furthermore, he seemed to have a very long dream. In the dream, his entire body seemed to itch, and he felt an indescribable discomfort. Later, it was as if he'd been soaked in warm water. He felt at ease. When he felt a ray of sunlight shining on his eyes, Harry finally woke up slowly. When he opened his eyes, he was pricked by the sunlight, but he couldn't see his surroundings clearly. He first heard all kinds of bird cries, as well as the rustling of leaves when the wind blew. Hearing the sounds, he thought he was in a forest. Harry, who was a little confused, closed his eyes. Only then did he remember what had happened. He operated the power armor and crashed into the plane that was chasing him. Then there was a violent explosion and a blinding light. Under the huge impact, Harry fainted. When he fell to the ground in a coma, the power armor system automatically activated its parachute. Although he recalled everything, Harry was still a little confused. He should have fallen to the ground by now, but he was now lying in a bed. He looked up at the ceiling and saw that there was no hole in it. Harry felt even more confused about how he got to this room. When he sat up, he saw that the power armor on his body had already been removed. Harry understood that he had been saved. He staggered to his feet and his chest felt a little stiff. It seemed that the impact and the explosion had caused him some moderate injuries. After opening the door, Harry found that he was in a mountain villa. "Anyone here?" Harry shouted. Since he was saved by someone, he should thank them properly. Next, Harry had to leave as soon as possible. It was hard to say whether Harry was still being chased by the council. Therefore, he had to leave this place as soon as possible so as not to cause unnecessary trouble to the owner. As Harry spoke, there was movement below him. Harry was now standing on the balcony on the second floor of the villa. The wooden stairs beside him made a series of banging sounds. Someone walked up, and Harry listened to the noise. Sure enough, a moment later, the person who appeared in front of Harry was a pretty girl. She said in a clear voice, "You're awake! Are you feeling well? Do you want to get a doctor to check your injuries?" Harry smiled and said politely, "No need, I'm fine. I should thank you for saving me." The cute girl waved her hand. "You don't have to be so polite. You almost smashed into my house when you fell from the sky. I was so scared at that time. But it's good that you're okay." "Then I'm sorry to have troubled you." Harry scratched his head. The pretty girl's eyes revealed a smile as she pursed her lips and looked at Harry. Harry didn't really know what to say. The two of them were silent for a moment. Finally, Harry didn't want to continue bringing trouble to others. If he was still being chased by the council, this girl might be implicated. He decided to take his leave. "Well, I have to go now. I'll repay you for saving me." The petite girl burst into laughter. "You're so funny. Don't tell me you don't know me, cousin." "Cousin?" Harry widened his eyes in shock. I'm hurt. You don't even know your own cousin?" Harry felt like his brain was spinning. Or perhaps he hadn't fully woken up after falling from the sky. "No, you're joking with me, aren't you?" Harry asked in surprise. The girl smiled and said, "I'm not lying to you. I'm your cousin, Jennifer." Harry shook his head. "I don't have a cousin. You must have made a mistake. But how do you know my name?" After saying that, he became alert and felt that this might be a trick by the council. However, this girl called Jennifer said, "My mother is your aunt." "Your mother must have never told you about me." Harry wouldn't be convinced by her words. He shook his head and said, "Miss, I don't have time to play with you anymore. There are still important things I have to do, so I have to go." He thought about Wayne's return. Michaela and Callie would be anxious if they didn't see him. Harry couldn't hold his breath here. He had to go back as soon as possible. Otherwise, Michaela and the others might try to find him and be captured again. However, Jennifer said, "You cannot go back alone. The council has increased their search for you." Harry said in surprise, "How do you know these things? Who are you?" Jennifer said, "I already said that I'm your cousin. Also, I know that you destroyed the valley last night. However, the core members of the council weren't eliminated. It's a pity." At this point, Harry became even more puzzled. Harry couldn't understand how she got all the knowledge that she had gotten. Jennifer saw doubt in Harry's heart. "Come with me. I'll show you that you can trust me. Last night, in order to save you, I spent quite a bit of money and resources." After saying that, she gestured to Harry to follow her. Harry was puzzled, so he thought it would be good to go and take a look with her. At the very least, he had to figure out what she was up to. He walked out of the villa, along the winding mountain path, and passed through a forest. The two of them arrived at a wide-open area. Harry then realized that there was actually a camp here. There were no less than 2,000 people training inside. "This is..." Harry was puzzled. "This is the place your mother left for you. She left it for you as the last bastion of hope for you. The 2,000 people you see down there are just a fraction of the people your mother left for you." What Jennifer said shocked Harry even more. My mother left it for me? How could it be? How come I never knew? Harry widened his eyes. Harry's parents had passed away when he was still a child. Jennifer said, "This was entrusted to my mother to manage on behalf of your mother, and because of the threat of the council, she's been hiding in the dark. Now, it's time for you to see it." Harry was doubtful. "So that's how it is. This is all so sudden. I don't know what to say anymore." Jennifer said, "What else can you say?" Harry asked, "Is this all mine?" "Yes and no. The original inheritance is held up in assets and funds that would build and strengthen this force while you are growing up. The people and the facilities are yours, but the money that funds them is not liquid enough for you to use." Harry nodded and agreed with this sentence. "How did you know that I would land here and about the conflict between me and the council?" Harry still had doubts in his heart. Jennifer said, "Go and sit there. I will tell you." There was a resting pavilion next to the camp. The two of them walked over. Sitting in the pavilion, Harry's anxious heart calmed down a little. He listened to Jennifer slowly recount everything she knew. Harry finally understood the general situation. It turned out that Harry's mother had noticed the ambition of the council a long time ago. Therefore, she had secretly established a force with the purpose of helping Harry. Naturally, she wouldn't be at ease if this force was managed by an outsider, so she handed it over to Harry's aunt. When Harry reached adulthood, if the council wanted to attack him, then this force would be given to him. But before the council launched an attack on Harry, this force would be kept a secret. Their goal was to hide themselves from the members of the council. Only in this way could they stay effective. So that's how it is. You haven't told me how powerful this force is. Can it stop the council? There are 2,000 elite warriors in this camp. There are many people hiding out in different places in the world. In total, there are 50,000 of them, Jennifer said proudly. This force was left behind by Harry's mother. But in the beginning, she only planted a seed. The reason why it could develop to such an extent was all because of Jennifer's mother and her own purpose. Therefore, she had the right to feel proud in front of Harry. Harry asked in embarrassment, "Such a powerful force. Are you willing to hand it over? Have you never thought of controlling it yourself?" This was human nature, and Harry wasn't willing to doubt Jennifer, but he still had to ask. He didn't believe anyone would be that selfless. After all, they were only cousins, and they had met maybe once or twice when they were young. Harry didn't think that Jennifer could completely give up her strength just because of the bond of family. Hearing Harry's words, Jennifer smiled and shook her head. "I've never thought about it. I've worked most of my life to build this force. Also, I don't have the final say in this matter." After hearing this, Harry understood. When his mother left this force behind, she must have some loyal people in charge. This was to prevent others from taking over the group for their own purposes. He scratched his head. "Fine. I'm sorry if I offended you. I shouldn't have asked such a stupid question. Since you've saved me, what are you going to do next?" Jennifer rolled her eyes and said, "Another stupid question. These men are for you to use. I should be asking you that question." "Is that so?" Harry scratched his head again. Jennifer suddenly smiled. "But I have an idea. It will be up to you whether you listen or not." Harry asked. "Go ahead." "Since you've already destroyed the valley, that's dealt a serious blow to the council. If you launch another sudden attack on them, the council will be ill-prepared. They'll make a mistake, and you can take them out easily." Harry nodded his head, but he didn't agree with this idea. If the council could be defeated so easily, he wouldn't have fallen out of the sky trying to save his friends. It seemed that Jennifer had underestimated the council. He said, "Let's not talk about the counterattack first. The most important thing right now is to remove the lockdown on my territory by the council. I think it's better to take back control of my home." Jennifer said straightforwardly, "No problem. But before that, you have to marry me first." Harry once again widened his eyes in shock. "What did you say?" "You have to marry me." Harry exclaimed, "Are you kidding me? Aren't you my cousin? We're relatives. How can we get married?" Jennifer smiled and said, "We're only relatives in name. I'm actually adopted and not related to you by blood. Moreover, your mother said that if you want to take back this power, you have to marry me first. Harry didn't even think about it and firmly refused. That's impossible. I won't agree to such a ridiculous request, even if it's in my mother's will. Only after you marry me will you be able to command this force. 50,000 highly trained people would be more than enough to go against the council, Jennifer said. Harry still shook his head. He wanted to regain control of his home, but it didn't mean that he could sacrifice his happiness to obtain it. Therefore, after hearing this, Harry lost his patience. He stood up and said, "In that case, I don't want any of this. I'll be leaving now. Goodbye." After saying that, he walked outside. Jennifer didn't try to persuade him to stay. She just watched him walk out without looking back. When Harry was about to walk out of the camp, Jennifer called out to him, "Wait! I was kidding!" But Harry was angry at this moment. He never liked to joke about something as serious as marriage. He continued to walk outside without turning his head back. He didn't need the help of others, and he was confident that he could defeat the council on his own. It was just a matter of time. Anyway, as long as he returned to the cave and kept building his forces, he could defeat the council. With this defeat, Harry had learned a lot. There was no rush to fight with the council. He was still young and had a long life ahead of him. He had to take it slow. Harry didn't want to bother with Jennifer anymore, but when she saw Harry taking it seriously, she panicked. She hurriedly ran over and pulled Harry. "Why are you still angry? It was just a big joke." Harry sneered. "Are you joking?" Jennifer was defeated. "All right, actually it wasn't a joke. I just wanted to test you." Harry asked, "What's the point of such a stupid test?" "Actually, it doesn't have much meaning. It's just that my mother left a last wish for me before she passed away. She wanted us to grow close to each other. She thought it would help us to control all the men." Harry shook his head. "I'm not some pawn that can be married off." I know. Actually, I don't want to do this either." "So," Harry raised his eyebrows. "So, didn't you want to get rid of the siege around your home? Leave it to me. You just need to stay and see what we're capable of." Jennifer tried to persuade him to stay. Harry thought for a while and nodded. "Okay, this is a big deal. You can't joke around. You're a man of action, aren't you? Let's go back to the villa and have something to eat." Harry felt his stomach ache with hunger. After he crashed into the plane, he had been unconscious for 24 hours. He didn't eat or drink anything. He happily agreed. Okay, let's go eat something." The two of them returned to the villa. After learning that Harry had woken up, there were a few more people in the villa. They were all old men with white hair. After seeing Harry, they knelt down in excitement. "After so many years, we can finally see you." Harry looked at Jennifer in confusion. "These are?" "They are the men your mother trusted to manage the finances and forces in the camp," Jennifer explained. The few old men were grateful. "Mr. Harry, you have suffered for so many years. If it wasn't for your mother's instructions to not let us show ourselves, we would have helped you take on the council." When Harry finally sat down, he was ready to eat. The old men stood up in fear. "We're just servants. We can't eat with you." "I don't believe in such formality. Sit down. There are many things that I don't know yet. Let's talk about the details," Harry greeted. Only then did the few of them thank him and take their seats again. "You all seem to know everything about me, so I want to ask, if we gather your people, can you remove the blockade from my home?" Harry thought for a moment and asked. They didn't hesitate and immediately patted their chests to guarantee, "Absolutely." Harry didn't expect them to be so confident, so he asked, "The council is very strong. Don't underestimate them. And please, call me Harry." The old man said, "Harry, you don't have to worry. We're not exaggerating." "That's right, Harry. You can relax and watch. The blockade over Reflecting Moon Island will be lifted in less than 3 days." Harry said in surprise, "You're so confident. Let's wait and see." Speaking of this, the old men didn't even eat. They immediately stood up and said goodbye. They went out to gather their people. What surprised Harry was that they did what they said immediately. They had just finished their meal and the night was still young. The camp became noisy and all kinds of airplanes rumbled as they started to descend from the sky. They've all been transferred here so quickly. I remember you said that they were all settled around the world, Harry asked in surprise. Jennifer replied, "This is pretty slow. We've done a lot better in our drills." Harry laughed. "Ha, that is crazy." After saying that, Harry carefully observed this unexpected power. He was quite surprised. These people were indeed as well trained as Jennifer had said. Moreover, the weapons and equipment they processed were even more advanced than his own Wolfguard weapons. If they were to attack the council, Harry's home would be saved. Seeing that the people in the camp were about to gather, an accident occurred. Suddenly, the alarm rang. Everyone grabbed their weapons and waited. "Enemy attack! Watch out for air defense! Attention! Attention! This is not a drill! This is not a drill! Prepare for battle!" A disembodied voice rang through the forest. For a moment, the entire camp became noisy. Everyone entered their respective positions and prepared for an incoming attack. Harry frowned. "The council? Are there spies among your people?" Jennifer was puzzled. She replied with a frown. "That's impossible. If there were spies among my people, the council would have attacked a long time ago." It was logical, and Harry could understand this point. Currently, there were 50,000 people gathered here. It could only be the council coming to attack. When Harry looked over, he found that the exhaust flame from the engine of the aircraft looked familiar. He turned pale with fright. "Hurry up and tell your men not to attack. It's one of mine." "Wait, who is that?" Jennifer didn't understand. "Stop asking questions. Tell your people to stand down," Harry said anxiously. Although it was late at night, Harry couldn't make out the shape of the aircraft, but he knew what the engine trail looked like. It could only be the Dawn 2. Jennifer saw that Harry was anxious and didn't delay. She immediately picked up the communication device and made everyone stop moving. It wasn't that Jennifer didn't believe Harry's words, but she couldn't let her guard down too much. If they let everyone off guard easily, then if it was the enemy, they would suffer a great loss. However, things didn't go in the direction of the worst. After the plane circled once in the sky, it began to descend slowly until it landed on the open space outside the villa. Jennifer's men quickly surrounded them. They looked at the mysterious aircraft covetously. However, Harry rushed over. Seeing this, Jennifer motioned for her men to relax. After the plane stopped, the hatch opened very quickly. Callie stepped out of the hatch. Callie saw that Harry was safe and sound, and her face revealed a look of joy. But when she saw that there were so many unfamiliar armed personnel around her, her heart dropped. She thought that Harry was captured by the council. She almost motioned for the bionic humans to attack in order to save Harry. Harry saw her worry and quickly explained, "These are our own people. Don't be afraid." Callie looked at Harry doubtfully, not understanding where these allies came from. "Let's go into the house. This matter can be explained in 1 or 2 sentences," Harry greeted. Callie suppressed the doubts in her heart. She nodded and followed Harry into the villa. After a long while, Harry finally finished explaining the reason. Callie finally understood. "So that's how it is. Then should we head back to the blockade?" Harry turned to look at Jennifer. "What do you think?" Jennifer said, "No problem. The people have gathered and the operation has been planned. We can act at any time." Harry nodded and said, "Then let's not delay any longer. Let's go now." When tens of thousands of troops moved, there was a large commotion. Seeing these people begin to set off, Harry's heart was overwhelmed with emotions. He had never thought that he would be able to escape death. "Harry, what do you plan to do after removing the blockade?" Callie asked. Harry thought for a while and said, "Let's restore the production of Industrial Island first. We should focus all our funds on developing our strength and quickly building a new force in a short period of time. Then we'll settle the score with the council." Callie nodded and said, "Yes, I'll help you." Jennifer, who was beside them, looked at their affectionate expressions and teased, "Cousin, is this your girlfriend? No wonder you were unwilling to marry me." "Marriage?" Callie looked at Harry. Harry felt his scalp tighten and quickly explained, "Don't listen to our nonsense. We're relatives." Jennifer smiled and said, "Not really. I'm adopted. We're not related by blood." Harry wanted to cover her mouth. Unexpectedly, Callie said, "If you can help Harry take revenge, I have no objections." "Really?" Jennifer seemed to be a little surprised. "Ugh, don't encourage her," Harry quickly interrupted. Jennifer laughed at Harry. In Reflecting Moon Island, ever since Callie left to look for Harry, Michaela had been restless. She was worried that something bad would happen to Harry outside. She was even more worried that she might run into the council. Her heart was in turmoil. She was so anxious that her face was almost scrunched up. "Michaela, June seems to be waking up," Wayne came to report. Michaela immediately jumped up. "This is great! Take me there!" Inside the cave, in a sealed room, June was lying inside a sealed unit. This unit had been modified to use the AI to monitor patients without needing a doctor. As long as a person was lying inside, they could start all kinds of treatments. The AI had been given all the information and equipment to be able to perform surgeries that would normally need a team of surgeons to do. June's injuries were very serious, but luckily, most of them were only skin deep. After suturing and sterilizing her blood, June started to recover. When Michaela arrived, she had already opened her eyes. First, she looked at her surroundings in confusion. Then, she saw Michaela and asked weakly, "Michaela, did you get caught by the council?" Michaela wiped her tears and said, "No, you were rescued, and you're now in the cave." "The cave? Is it the cave on Reflecting Moon Island?" June asked. Michaela nodded. "Harry went to save you personally." June slightly raised her head and didn't see Harry's figure, so she asked, "Then what about Harry? Where is he?" With this question, Michaela couldn't stop her tears. She started crying. "What's wrong? Where's Harry? Hurry up and tell me." June was anxious in her heart. "I don't know," Michaela cried loudly. She didn't want to cry so easily, but there was nothing she could do. Michaela secretly hated herself for not being able to help Harry, but she couldn't do anything. She saw that June was anxious. Only then did she tell June everything in detail. She heard that Harry's whereabouts were unknown because he saved her. They didn't even know whether he was alive or dead. June became anxious. "Quickly, open the medical pod and let me out. I want to go and find Harry." Michaela quickly said, "No way. You haven't recovered yet. Besides, Callie has already gone to look for him." June shook her head and said, "She's just a tech nerd. What if she runs into the council? I have to go." Michaela saw that she was so weak that she couldn't stand stably. So she refused. "Don't worry. You should recover first." "How can I not worry? It's too dangerous for Harry to be outside." As she spoke, she was about to forcefully pull out the IV tube that was connected to her body. At this moment, everyone felt a series of tremors. "What's going on?" June asked. Michaela quickly said, "Lay down. I'll go out and take a look." As she spoke, she ran out and found Wayne and asked, "What's going on?" Wayne happened to come back from checking the situation outside. He was confused, but he was a little excited as he said, "I saw someone attacking the council." "What? Who is it?" Michaela asked curiously. Wayne shook his head and said, "Someone new. At least, someone I don't know." Just as everyone was puzzled, the communicator suddenly rang. Michaela quickly picked up the call. Harry's voice came from inside, making her wild with joy. "Michaela, stay in the cave and don't run around. I'm attacking the blockade. We'll finish them off soon." "Harry, it's great to hear your voice. June is awake and just about to come get you," Michaela said excitedly. Harry said, "Tell her that I'm fine and let her rest. When I finish dealing with the enemy, I'll come to see her." "I'll tell her the good news right away." After ending the call, Michaela ran back to June's side with wild joy. "June, Harry is fine. The commotion outside is Harry destroying the blockade." "What? Where did Harry get another army?" June was very puzzled. She had always been the one that managed Harry's forces. She knew every aspect of his army and how they had been destroyed by the council. The wealth that Harry had gathered was decimated by the council during their sneak attack. Now that Harry had brought another army to attack the council, June couldn't believe it. Michaela shook her head. I don't know. Harry didn't say, but who cares? As long as we defeat the council, it'll be fine. No, I'm still worried. I have to go out and take a look. June's heart couldn't calm down. Michaela quickly said, Harry just said that he wanted you to rest and wait for him to come to us. When she said this, June couldn't refute it. She couldn't disobey Harry's orders. After hesitating for a moment, she could only sigh and lie back down. The medical unit was completely sealed, and it couldn't be opened from the inside. If she wanted to go out, she needed Michaela to open it from the outside. Harry had seen the army his mother left him in action. He was awestruck at how efficient they were. The council had even taken over the defenses that June had set up on the islands, which had slowed Harry's new army down a little. Jennifer saw Harry's anxiety and comforted him. Don't be anxious. This attack will take more than a day, but I can see victory. Being blocked temporarily doesn't mean that we'll fail. In my opinion, the council can't stop us. That's for the best. I'm worried that it will drag on for a long time. If reinforcements come, we'll be finished, Harry said. Jennifer smiled and said, What reinforcements? I forgot to tell you. You destroyed the valley. That was a huge blow to the council. Harry said in surprise. Really? Why didn't you tell me sooner? I just found out. After all, it would take some time for the news to spread. Besides, I need to confirm the report, but I trust the team I sent to investigate. Harry didn't expect to receive such a big surprise. The destruction of the valley was just something Harry wanted to do to vent his anger. He didn't intend to catch all the higher-ups of the council in one fell swoop. But now, Jennifer told him that although the higher-ups of the council were only mildly injured, they had suffered heavy losses. According to the intelligence report, when Harry destroyed the valley, the council had gathered a large number of their forces there. As a result, a third of the council's people were wiped out. Upon hearing this news, Harry was very happy. After Harry finished being happy, he looked at the battle in front of him again. At this moment, the battle around the Reflecting Moon Island had reached its climax. Whether it was the sky, the land, or the ocean, Jennifer's men were all launching fierce attacks. Harry didn't expect that she and the others would have such devastating equipment. He asked curiously, How are you able to build this army without the council noticing? Jennifer smiled and said, The council controls the Parker family. It seems that they're insufferably arrogant, but in the end, they can't control the entire world. Besides, there are many members in the Parker family who don't like the council. So, there are too many people who turn a blind eye to me, and they often communicate with me. Harry understood that Jennifer had been operating under the Parker family, but was shielded from the gaze of the council. No matter how powerful they were, they couldn't control the hearts of people. To Harry, this was another lesson he had learned time and time again. He then thought about how he would treat others if he took over the family after the council was destroyed. Harry felt that he would have a better grasp of dealing with so many people. He had been slowly building his empire and had learned that there is no single solution to make everyone happy. As time went on, there would always be internal strife. There would be a day when it would come to a climax that could end the whole family. Looking at the development of the situation, Jennifer suddenly laughed. Ha! It seems that in less than 3 days, the council has begun to collapse. Harry turned his attention back to the distant battle. As expected, he saw that many of the members of the council on the island had walked out of the defensive facilities. They raised their hands and surrendered to Jennifer's men. They saw that they were losing and knew that no reinforcements were coming. They weren't all willing to lay down their lives for the council, especially not for how little they got paid. Seeing that they couldn't fight anymore, they might as well surrender to save their own lives. The collapse didn't happen all of a sudden. At first, there were a few people, then a dozen or so. Then, it was hundreds of hands raising up like spreading wildfire. Hundreds and thousands of people began to put down their weapons and surrender. The council blockaded the Reflecting Moon Island, and there were more than 20,000 people who were searching for Harry. All of them were either unconscious or had surrendered. With the last dozen of people from the council coming out to surrender, Harry finally reclaimed his island. This place had once again returned to Harry's hands. Harry almost didn't recognize that this was his territory. The originally orderly and beautiful islands were already beyond recognition. The islands had long since become barren, with not a single blade of grass growing. Fortunately, the main island was the least affected by the devastation. Otherwise, all the vegetation on the island would have been burnt down and turned into a deserted island. Harry wasn't in a hurry to count the losses. What he was most concerned about was going to the cave to find Michaela and June. Moreover, June's injuries were always on Harry's mind. Harry was still worried. He wanted to see for himself to know if June was all right. When Jennifer's people were cleaning up the captives, Harry brought her to the entrance of the cave. Jennifer said, "This is the cave you built? I have to say, the location is quite hidden." Harry smiled bitterly and said, "I would rather not use it. It's cramped and reminds me of how close I came to losing." Jennifer nodded. "That's true," Harry said. "But luckily I had this place, and there's a large number of resources stored inside. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to last until today." The two of them entered the cave, and Michaela and the others ran out when they heard the noise. They saw Harry. Michaela cheered and threw herself onto Harry. "You're finally back! I was so worried about you!" Seeing the puzzled look on Jennifer's face, Harry thought that she probably didn't know Michaela existed. He explained, "This is my sister. Well, half-sister." Jennifer said, "I see. So my uncle was a bit of a romantic." Harry coughed. Let's not talk about that." Michaela saw Harry bring a stranger in and had a puzzled look. "Who is this?" Harry introduced. "This is Jennifer. She's my cousin and your first cousin. It gets complicated, but you should thank her. She's the reason we were able to fight the council." "Cousin?" Michaela didn't understand. Harry had told her a long time ago that he didn't have any living relatives. Michaela was happy at first, but couldn't help but be cautious around a new face. She had begun to be quite paranoid when dealing with the council. Other than Harry and a few people she trusted, she felt that there was something wrong with everyone else. "We'll talk about this later. Let me go and see June first. How is she now?" Harry said anxiously. "I'll take you to her now." In the medical treatment pod, June finally saw Harry. Seeing that Harry was safe and sound, June was so excited that she cried. "Harry, it's so good that you're okay." Harry felt sad, even though June had been recovering in the treatment pod. June was still healing and needed to have most of her body covered in bandages. "How do you feel? Are you in any pain?" Harry asked. June shook her head. "Harry, you don't have to worry about me. I feel fine." "That's good. Rest for a few more days. You're not allowed to leave. I don't want any of your wounds getting infected," Harry instructed. The medical cabin was sterile. June could recover without any fear of getting worse. "But Harry, now is not the time for me to be stuck in bed. You need all hands on deck, and I need to be there." June didn't want to be idle here. Harry refused. "Listen to me. You need to rest. If you hurt yourself again, you'll never be able to fully heal, and then you'll never be able to help me." I hate that you're right. After comforting June, Harry brought Jennifer to look at the equipment in the cave. Looking at the orderly production lines, Jennifer was amazed. "I didn't expect that the council would force you to the brink of death, and you were still able to build all of this." Harry said, "This is all thanks to June. She thought ahead and prepared this cave for me. Without her, I'd be dead already. June is loyal to you. You have to take good care of her in the future." Jennifer smiled and said, "Of course," Harry said. But now, he had to discuss the next plan with Jennifer first. "My territory has been secured. I'll arrange for people to quickly restore the production lines. I don't want the council to be able to catch their breath. I have to take advantage of the chaos and make sure they die." Jennifer agreed. "I had the same thought, but the problem now is that we don't have surprise on our side. They'll be ready." Harry said confidently, "I have an idea about this. We should cut off its wings first, and then get rid of the roots." Cut off the wings? What? Harry said, I'm talking about Egypt. Jennifer nodded and said, Oh, yes, they'll be a thorn in our side if we don't take them out. Yes, but before the operation, let your people rest. Also, I've got something for them that will make them even stronger. Speaking of this, Jennifer's eyes lit up. She had long known that Harry's island produced high-tech equipment. If the council waited to attack Harry by a few years, then he'd have stockpiled enough weaponry to rival most countries. Harry would have crushed them with a finger. The next day, the news of Harry taking back his territory spread all over. Many people had come to request an audience with Harry, which he denied. However, Harry saw Harvey and Randy. Harry didn't blame them for not saving him. There was nothing they could have done. Even if they banded together, the council would be able to crush them. Even though Harvey and Randy were prepared to fight to the death with the council, they were left to defend themselves without any chance to counterattack. They were Harry's best friends, so the council wouldn't let them do whatever they wanted. If Harry was caught, it wouldn't be long before they were wiped out by the council. Fortunately, Harry still managed to take back his territory in the end, causing the council a massive defeat. Now, when Randy and Harvey heard the news, they immediately rushed over to meet Harry. Harry, it's great that you're all right. You made us worry. Yeah, we're all prepared to fight with our lives on the line against the council. If something happens to you, we'll make sure the council pays. Harry smiled, knowing that they were entirely sincere. Whether it was Harvey's family or Randy's family, neither of them was particularly strong when it came to warfare. Their only strength was that of their bodyguards. I understand your intentions. I'll let you know when I need you, Harry said with a smile. They had been talking inside the Jade Manor. However, not only had this magnificent manor been picked clean, but it had also been set ablaze. The white jade walls were charred black by the smoke. It was only after his men cleaned up that they managed to find a table where they could sit and talk. Harvey and Randy looked at it and sighed. As for the other visitor, Buddy was especially surprised. Buddy's family was just someone Harry happened to know, and the two parties were only doing business. Harry asked Buddy's family to build ships for him. They barely knew each other. But Buddy's family knew that meeting with Harry now would be beneficial for their business arrangement. Buddy, what brings you here today? Harry took the initiative to ask. Buddy still said respectfully, Harry, I came here today to report to you that the first batch of ships has been built and are on the way to be sent over. Oh, already? Harry was a little surprised. Harry had thought that after knowing that his territory had been occupied by the council, Buddy would tear up the contract and keep Harry's deposit. Harry then became happy. Buddy, you've got impeccable timing. Buddy said respectfully, That is great. It's my greatest honor to be able to help you. Harry smiled. Harry was going to launch an attack on the council, and there would be a great need for ships to help him transport his troops and equipment. 2 days later, the ships arrived at Reflecting Moon Island. There were a total of 30 ships. 10 of them were for combat, while the other 20 were used to transport people and equipment. They could carry 40,000 people to Egypt, and there was no need to resupply during the journey. Based on the standards that Harry set and the large accessories that he provided, the combat strength of each ship was above that of the other warships in the world. Harry didn't need to worry about the technology leaking when he handed it over to Buddy's family to manufacture. That was because he only needed to provide the parts and specifications. And what Buddy's family needed to do was to build a hull and then assemble all the parts inside. Even so, Buddy's family benefited a lot from this large shipbuilding order. The most important thing was that the influence of Buddy's family had been spread. The council naturally knew about the cooperations between Harry and Buddy's family. If not for the fact that they had been searching for Harry, Buddy's family would have been crushed. Now that Harry had returned, Buddy's family had a choice to make. They decided to be completely loyal to Harry. If Harry engaged in a fierce battle with the council, the other families that depended on him had to choose a side to stand on. This was a decision that they didn't make lightly, because once they made the wrong choice and stood on the side of failure, the entire family would be implicated. The decision to stand on Harry's side was the final decision of Buddy's family after they had made various judgments. To put it bluntly, they had seen Harry's full potential, The council was powerful now, but it had long been decaying. If Harry was the winner, then Buddy's family would benefit greatly from being aligned with him. If it weren't for the fact that Harry's ships traveled at a slow pace, Buddy would have brought one with him. This way, it would be better to show Harry the loyalty of Buddy's family. Of course, Harry knew what Buddy was thinking. Since the ships were already in position, Harry didn't want to delay any longer. He immediately ordered Jennifer's men to board the ship and prepare for the expedition to Egypt. Out of 50,000 people, 10,000 were left to guard the Reflecting Moon Island, and they had to guard the captives. The remaining 40,000 were given better equipment provided by Harry. His combat strength, which had already been extraordinary in the past, had once again increased. The super advanced weapon equipment made Jennifer's people shout excitedly. When all the preparations were done, Harry was about to set off. Before leaving, he went back to June to let her know that he'd be okay. June pleaded with Harry to let her follow. "Harry, I'll follow you no matter what you say. Look, my injuries are all healed," June said, and lifted her clothes to let Harry take a look. Harry shook his head repeatedly. "If I say no, it means no. You must stay here." "I have to follow you." June steeled her heart. Harry saw that he couldn't persuade her, so he had to pull out all the stops. He looked at her. There were still people around, so he leaned over and whispered a few words into her ear. As he spoke, June's ears turned red. Then, even her neck and her face turned red, as if they were on fire. After Harry finished speaking, he smiled and turned around to leave. June didn't persist any longer and just blankly watched Harry leave. After Harry had walked far away, the curious Michaela walked up to June and asked, "June, what did Harry say to you? Why are you blushing?" Michaela was curious. What exactly was it that could make the usually calm June so shy? June shook her head. "It's nothing." Michaela shook her head. "It's not important? Really? Don't treat me like a child and tell me." June didn't continue to explain and turned around to leave in a fluster. I still have some matters to attend to, so I'll be leaving." Michaela looked at her back and muttered, "What is there to be anxious about?" Harry's fleet sailed in formation. The journey this time was more than 10,000 miles. Just sailing on the ocean for a long period of time was a form of torture. Therefore, after Harry realized that something was wrong, he no longer requested to go to Egypt. Instead, he planned to head to Saudi Arabia first so his men could rest and reorganize. Once their minds were fully recovered, he would once again embark on his journey. So, on the way, Harry contacted Sean. He had called him 3 times in a row. Just as Harry had lost his patience and was ready to give up, the last call finally connected. Sean was very excited when he heard Harry's voice on the other end of the call. However, Harry could hear some tiredness and disappointment. "Sean, are you okay?" Harry took the initiative to ask. Sean was silent for a moment before he finally let out a long sigh. "Harry, my family is in trouble." Sean was about to cry. Harry hurriedly asked, "What exactly happened? Tell me." "The council attacked you, but they also launched a full-scale assault on us." Harry was shocked. He didn't expect the council to not attack Harvey's family and Randy's family, and not even Buddy's family. It was odd that they only attacked the royal family. After thinking for a while, Harry finally understood. The reason why the council was like this was probably because the royal family used to be their lackey, but they later formed an alliance with Harry. The council couldn't tolerate this kind of traitorous behavior. Of course, they didn't deal personally with the royal family. Instead, they sent their loyal fighters from Egypt to launch an attack on the royal family. Although Egypt couldn't be compared to the royal family, they were still very powerful. During this period of time, the royal family had been under constant assault. They had lost their positions one after the other, and a large part of the land had been occupied. In regard to this, there were many people in the royal family who wanted to surrender and show that they would serve the council again. Unfortunately, the council would never forgive anyone that had betrayed them in the past. Sean, who who had formed an alliance with Harry, had a hard time keeping his family together. Within the royal family, they had vented all the anger they had suffered greatly because of his decision. Today, if not for Harry taking the initiative to contact Sean, he would have been forced to fight on the front lines. "Harry, I heard that you've returned to Reflecting Moon Island. You must help me," Sean begged. He had no other choice but to ask. Harry comforted him. "Don't be sad anymore. I'll bring my men to your side. Originally, I was going to march to Egypt, but now it's a perfect time. I'll come and help you." Harry saw the coincidence with his call and chuckled at how fate seemed to play out. "Really? Harry, do you still have your forces?" Sean said in surprise. Harry smiled and said, "Of course I have my forces. Otherwise, how could I have taken back my territory?" "That's great. I'll tell this good news to the family now." Harry quickly stopped him. Don't let anyone else know that I'm coming. If the news is leaked and Egypt gets to know about it, it'll be bad if they have time to prepare." Sean thought for a while and agreed helplessly. "That's true. Nowadays, the royal family is not united. There are too many people who are disloyal." After saying that, he sighed heavily. Harry comforted him again. He agreed on the date of their arrival and the location of their landing before ending the call. "You heard it too, right? We don't have to go far now. We can fight Egypt and Saudi Arabia," Harry said to Jennifer, who was standing beside him. "That's the best news I've heard all week." Jennifer was very happy about this news. Although the royal family was the one suffering, it didn't matter to her at all. Next, Sean followed Harry's request and sent him detailed information. This was detailed information about the battle between the royal family in Egypt. According to this data, Harry began his battle plan after Jennifer showed him the place to land. Egypt has already annexed Libya. Fortunately, they're fighting in the western region of Saudi Arabia. We'll land in the east, Jennifer said. Harry nodded. Well, if that's the case, I'd rather not deal with their defenses, so landing on the other side would be nice. I suggest that we don't rush to fight the enemy after disembarking. We need to rest for a while before we can attack effectively, Jennifer suggested. Harry naturally agreed, although her men were all elite soldiers. But it didn't mean that everyone was used to long-term sailing. Especially when the waves were strong, the entire ship was like a roller coaster, moving up and down everywhere. The ship was shaking so hard that people kept vomiting. Even the people in power armor were having trouble staying upright. The suit lessened the issues, but it didn't make it tolerable. After contacting Harry again, Sean laid out all the details for Harry's men so they weren't lost when they landed. These last few days, Sean had been waiting with anticipation. Every morning, Sean would go to the seaside to look for Harry. Even if he knew the exact date of Harry's arrival, he couldn't hold back the impatience in his heart. Harry was already very close. 2 days later, he finally arrived. Sean saw Harry's ship and was so excited that he danced like a monkey. Harry, you're finally here. Harry had just gotten off the boat, and before he could stand up, he was hugged by Sean. He was crying loudly, with snot and tears on his face. Everyone thought it was weird. Harry said in a good tone, All right, don't cry. I've never seen such a grown-up cry this hard. Hurry up and wipe your tears. Sean stood up with a whimper and said in a very aggrieved manner, Harry, you don't know. These days, it has been horrible for me. The attacks are losing me ground, and my own family is thinking of turning against me. Harry couldn't help but laugh. I already know that. Let's get down to business and see if we can fix this problem of yours. After Sean finished hugging him, he nodded his head. Because of the long journey, my people aren't used to living on the sea, so they have to rest for a few days. You have to help me with supplies and boarding, Harry said. Sean patted his chest and agreed. No problem. Although I don't have much here, I still have plenty of funds. I knew you were coming and made sure to buy all the food and drink you'll need, as well as enough tents to house all your men. You did well. Harry was satisfied. He praised Sean for thinking ahead of time. In fact, Sean's preparations surprised Harry even more. Sean had set up all the barracks as well as a large recreation area. Why did you bring this here as well? Quickly remove it, Harry said unhappily. Sean was a little surprised. Why? A little fun never hurt anybody. I don't care that my men need fun, but we can't have this in the camp. Harry said seriously. The war was imminent. Harry needed his people to stay focused. He didn't want them to party too hard and then be useless the next day. They could all party once the war was over. After cleaning up some things in the camp, Harry returned to the seaside villa that Sean had prepared for him. Although the information you gave me is very detailed, I still want to hear about the current situation from you, Harry said after he sat down. Sean nodded, cleared his throat, and started to explain the situation to Harry. The royal family in Egypt had been fighting against each other for a long time. There had never been a time when they could defeat each other. Fortunately, the royal family kept fighting despite their losses. They wanted to fight a war of attrition. If the war could continue long enough, neither side would win. This was good news for Harry. If the royal family of Egypt surrendered, then it'd be an uphill battle to go against them and the council. It wasn't because he was worried about having another opponent. It was because, without the royal family, Harry would lose an important source of supplies. Without food, water, or equipment, any army would falter. Therefore, the royal family was extremely important to Harry now. Without the support of the royal family's supplies, he'd lose the war before it even started. Currently, the royal family could still help Harry defend Egypt and delay some of their troops. This was even more beneficial to Harry. Currently, a third of the royal family's territory had already been occupied by Egypt. What was even more unfortunate was that they weren't far from their capital. Once the capital was breached, the fighting would be over. At that time, the royal family would surrender. Therefore, there was only one choice left for Harry. That was to act as soon as possible to block Egypt from the capital and even push them back to their own capital. Harry calculated on the map and said, 2 days later, we'll launch an attack on Egypt at this location. Harry pointed at a valley in the desert. If Egypt's forces wanted to take the capital, they would have to pass through this place. And with the favorable terrain, Harry could set up an ambush. With the right timing, location, and people, Harry would have a decisive victory. Harry was also hoping that a sandstorm would pick up so their enemy would have no chance to counterattack. After confirming the time of operation, Sean's anxious heart calmed down. However, because of Harry's request, Sean had to guide his own men and compartmentalize their movements. Sean would need to tell his family what the plan was, but he had to do it without exposing that Harry and his men were here. 2 days later, in the Blackstone Canyon, Harry's men had all gathered there and were lying in wait. They were just waiting for the enemy to fall into their trap. According to the report sent by their spies, they were 20 kilometers ahead of them and were heading this way. They had no idea that Harry had prepared an ambush here. Harry had repeatedly asked Sean to keep quiet, and it had worked. If the people of the royal family knew about it in advance, with their level of confidentiality, they would have sold out Harry a long time ago. There are still 15 minutes left. The enemy is about to enter our ambush. Jennifer looked at the time and said, "Calm down. Let the vanguard of the enemy move in first. We'll cut them in half at the waist," Harry said. When they were advancing, they didn't even open up their battle formation. Instead, they moved in the least defensive formation that gave them more speed. Harry knew that this enemy would be easy to take care of. When the enemy entered the ambush area, they would block the front and back of the narrow valley. The enemy wouldn't be able to escape. Then, Harry's men would start attacking from the middle and extend to both sides. In this way, no matter how strong the enemy was, they would still panic. They didn't notice that this was their end. "They have no idea. This seems a little cruel," Jennifer said disdainfully. "We can't blame them for being careless. The royal family hasn't put up much of a fight. They'll try and win this war as fast as possible. There's no reason that they'd ever know that we're here," Harry said with a smile. "Then we have the advantage," Jennifer said with a wicked smile. Just like that, about 15,000 people from Egypt walked into the canyon. When this group of people entered the valley, Harry signaled the messenger to wave the signal that they had all agreed upon. A loud rumbling sound was heard from both sides of the valley. Such a loud noise shook the sky. The Egyptian soldiers began to panic. They thought that it was because of the earthquake that caused the walls to collapse. Although it wasn't an earthquake, it was controlled explosives. Harry ordered his men to blow up the narrow passageways at both ends of the canyon. In an instant, the people of Egypt were trapped. "Attack!" Harry gave the final order. In an instant, the entire canyon was filled with rumbling sounds. Bullets filled the air from all directions above the valley. A moment later, Harry heard the endless number of enemies wailing. To Harry, the screams of his enemies were 100 times better than any symphony. It had been more than 10 breaths of time, and many of them were still standing in the same spot, with confused expressions on their faces. When half the men in the valley were dead, they all ran for cover. There was no vegetation in the valley. If they wanted to find a temporary shelter, they could only hide behind a large rock. Unfortunately, the attack was launched from the ridges of both sides. There was no way to get out of the line of fire. The battle raged for a minute or two. All kinds of ammunition were thrown out, like they'd never run out of ammo. Everyone in the valley was either dead or wishing they would die soon. Some were trying to feebly climb the walls, and others were trying to fire in return, but never hit anything. They were trapped with no escape against an insurmountable force that would make sure that they were dead. Seeing that the battle was going smoothly, Harry smiled at Sean. "Do you want a live captive, or should we just kill them all?" What?" Sean was still immersed in the refreshing ambush. When he heard Harry's words, he didn't understand what he meant for a moment. Harry explained, "These people are useless to me, but I think they will be very useful to you if I give them to you. So, do you want me to capture them or not?" Sean finally understood what Harry meant. If Sean took credit for this, his prestige would surely rise tremendously. After he understood what was going on, Sean immediately panicked and said, "Yes, capture some of them for me." Killing the soldiers would be a good step in the right direction for the war, but that could cause more confusion than good. Sean would need proof that he had defeated this army and could take on all of Egypt and win the war. Having captives would give him information on troop movements and would show his family that he is stronger than he appears. More importantly, according to internal information, Sean's ranking for inheriting the throne was originally planned to be brought up soon. Unfortunately, because of Harry's previous failure, no one mentioned this matter anymore. But now, if Sean put the evidence of defeating Egypt in front of everyone in the royal family, he'd be put on the throne the next day. Of course, Harry knew this, which was why he offered to take some of the enemy captive. The only person Harry liked in the royal family was Sean. Helping Sean was the same as helping himself. The entire battle took less than half an hour. The rest of the soldiers all knelt on the ground and chose to surrender. Of course, the battle had only lasted for a short period of time, and it had gone very smoothly. But before that, Harry had done a lot of work. In order to carry out this plan, everyone had prepared for 2 days. The captives were useless to Harry. Their weapons, equipment, and other resources were useless to him. He gave them all to Sean and his men to resupply some of his troops. Sean was grateful to receive the weapons so he could get more of his men to the front line. After the battle ended and the battlefield was cleaned up, Harry chose to set up camp inside the valley. This valley wasn't only a good place to set up an ambush, it was a good place to hide from the wind and sand. After giving all the spoils of war that he had obtained from the cleanup to Sean, he happily went back to his family to show off. He couldn't wait any longer. So, after obtaining a large number of captives and spoils of war, Sean quickly bade farewell to Harry and brought the captives back to earn some prestige from his family. Harry didn't care what he was thinking. Right now, he was thinking about how to proceed with the next battle. The first battle went smoothly, but that didn't mean that Egypt was defeated. The enemy had been caught off guard. Once they regrouped, the battles would only get more difficult. A victory in a battle didn't mean anything. A path he could take was to gather all his forces and fight a battle with Egypt head-on. But this would be disadvantageous to Harry, who had fewer people. Although he had the advantage in terms of equipment, he couldn't take on everyone all at once. The other option was a little difficult, and that was to take the initiative to attack. He wanted to find all the different cells that Egypt had sent out to terrorize this country and its people. These squads were separated, so there were maybe 4 in a group at each location. This gave Harry a chance to defeat them one by one. However, this method of fighting was very troublesome. Moreover, it would be a waste of energy to search for enemies everywhere. However, the advantage was that they were outnumbered. Harry already had the advantage in terms of equipment. Once he had the advantage in numbers again, he would be able to take bigger risks. That would include capturing some of Egypt's territory. After carefully considering it for a long time, Harry finally chose the second method. After making up his mind and resting for a day, Harry packed up the camp and prepared to set off again. Before he left, Sean came back in a cheerful mood. "You look rather proud of yourself?" Harry asked with a smile. Sean said excitedly, "It's not just that. Harry, you should have seen my family's face when I marched all the prisoners into the palace. I couldn't stop myself from laughing." Harry shook his head and laughed. "It's good that you're happy, but don't be satisfied just yet. There are more battles to come." That's right. Harry, we should focus on fighting. I'll provide you with whatever you want here," Sean said. "All right, then let's continue our journey. You follow as well. Don't forget to give me all the intel you have," Harry said. Harry wouldn't look down on him just because Sean didn't know how to fight. As the local snake, Sean was the best guide. If he wanted to find the people of Egypt scattered across the country, Sean could use his identity to find them in no time at all. Therefore, as a source of information, he was very suitable. "Harry, another group of people from Egypt is currently in a small village in front of us," Sean said worriedly. Harry didn't expect them to be in the countryside where the people were generally poor. Even if they were to rob them of everything the villagers own, they'd never make any money off of it. Thus, Sean mocked, "Scum like them can't even think things through." Harry shook his head and didn't comment. He looked at the sky and saw that it wasn't bright yet. After he got the news, he rushed there overnight. Since the sky was still dark, a wave of attack would make the enemy panic. He said, "Everyone, take advantage of the night to launch a surprise attack." The group of men understood and quietly began to approach the small village. After entering, they barely saw anything on the empty streets. Everything was quiet. Harry's men went in and out and soon returned. "What's the situation?" Harry asked. "Mr. Harry, there are 1,000 soldiers down there. All of them have been captured," his subordinate reported. "Very good. Go and rest." Because Harry had ordered them to attack this place, Harry's men chose to capture the enemies who were sleeping soundly without any mishaps. Each and every one of them took advantage of the fact that they were sleeping and tied them up and stuffed cloth into their mouths. As a result, many of the captured people barely had any time to realize what was happening before they were gagged and on the ground. The majority had been knocked out with the gas that Harry used on his narwhal with the miniature drones. After finishing the fight, Harry returned to the canyon. Sean happily brought the captives back to the royal family to show off again. Harry suddenly realized that this canyon was a good base. Relying on the hidden terrain here, Harry could turn this place into a temporary command center. He could spread the attack in all directions. No matter where the people of Egypt were, Harry could quickly go and attack them. However, they couldn't stay there forever. After suffering 2 serious attacks, Egypt was able to determine that they had a base in the desert and were getting help from some unknown power. Therefore, they quickly made some adjustments to their orders. All the personnel were no longer scattered, but ordered to gather at one place. They figured that they were safer in numbers. Therefore, Harry suddenly realized that the enemy was smarter than he originally thought. Compared to before, they must have made some arrangements to deal with Harry. However, the result of the arrangements made Harry even happier. He was worried that he wouldn't be able to seize the opportunity to completely eliminate the enemy. But the enemy had given him a chance, which made Harry happy. Now, he only needed to follow the enemy. His forces had crossed the desert and didn't see a soul. It wasn't until they reached some of the bigger towns that they started to see people. Civilians had come up to beg for food and water. Shortly after, one of Harry's scouts reported seeing a large group of the enemy. Today was the day he would fight to the death. Harry was confident that he could annihilate all of these people here and now. The other side was waiting for information, ready to fight with Harry. In the sand, after a moment of silence, he gave the order. Both sides started fighting. At first, the people of Egypt felt they had the advantage in numbers. So, they tried to win very quickly. Unfortunately, they had underestimated Harry's equipment. As soon as the battle started, the people of Egypt knew that something was wrong. Their own men fell one after the other, but Harry's men were still standing. After another 10 minutes, things became even more serious. Now, large groups of soldiers were collapsing one after the other. None of Harry's men seemed to be affected. The general of the Egyptian forces began to panic. Without saying another word, he left. As for the men he had left behind, they were just left to die. The continuous losses from the battle made everyone's hearts tremble. Now, the leader had actually run away. They all dropped their weapons and began to run. Harry immediately ordered his men to charge forward, taking advantage of the chaos to attack. Seeing Harry's men start to chase after the enemy, Sean followed behind and hurriedly instructed, "Capture them alive! You must capture them alive! I'll give you $2,000! When they heard this, they got even more excited. Capturing someone that wouldn't fight back was easy. They all wanted to make as much money as they could, so they turned it into a little game. The remaining 30,000 men from Egypt that had invaded had been captured by Harry's men. Sean handed out money to every one of his men that had captured an enemy. Sean usually traveled with a large sum of money because he knew that money could grease a lot of wheels. He directly grabbed a pile of cash and gave it to Harry's men. "I'm too lazy to count them myself. Sort it out amongst yourselves. Any extra you can all keep and distribute as you see fit." The men expressed their thanks. In just a few days, Harry had cleaned out all the enemies who had invaded Saudi Arabia. Sean and his family were in complete disbelief that Harry was able to move so quickly. It was only at this moment that Sean revealed that he was the one who had invited Harry to help them. Moreover, he was fulfilling his side of the contract. Harry had come to help. The royal family set up a banquet to thank Harry for his timely return and for his help in saving their people. They also planned on building their relationship with Harry. Unfortunately, Harry rejected them. Jennifer was curious to see how much the royal family would spend on the banquet just to squeeze some influence out of Harry. Instead, Jennifer helped Harry smooth over his refusal because she knew that he was going to be much busier than before. His eyes were set on a prize that he had to get his hands on. He still wanted to continue attacking until he attacked the core of Egypt. On the same day, he brought everyone out of the royal family and arrived in Libya. They had defenses, but they proved to be no match to Egypt with the help from the council. There wasn't even anything that they wanted. They were only following orders from the council. They were informed that the plan involved provoking the royal family so that the council could put some political pressure on some people and make it seem like their attacks were warranted. To make the plan work, Egypt sent out all but 1,000 of their own men to guard Libya. Harry marched his men across the border to the capital with ease. Without any resistance, the guards immediately raised their hands and surrendered. After wasting some time here, Harry continued to advance. Finally, he passed through Libya and entered Egypt. At this time, Harry officially began his revenge. He still never forgot about how they tried kidnapping his sister twice. The lives of ordinary people were still difficult, but they had grown strong and rude. After coming here, Harry knew in his heart that it might not be easy to fight anymore. If he were to count on the royal family to have 0 casualties, that would be a pipe dream. After entering Egypt, they encountered a bit of resistance, but nothing that could stop them for long. This made Harry suspect that their main force was still in Saudi Arabia or had already been captured. As a result, there weren't many people left to defend the city. However, Harry soon received some news. It wasn't that there was no one left in Egypt, but they were all gathered in the capital, ready to fight Harry with everything they had. Harry smiled when he heard that. Who gave them the courage? Doubt they know what the future holds for them. Harry ordered his men to head to the capital, but be prepared for any ambush along the way. The plan to surround and annihilate Egypt began with just a few words. Harry's men quickly surrounded the city. After surrounding the city tightly, Harry decided not to persuade them to surrender. He didn't believe that his opponent would agree anyway, but he still left the door open for anyone that wanted to surrender. Harry said that those who surrender will be spared. Get lost, only fools will believe you, the representative said. The capital of Egypt was surrounded, but they still had plenty to defend themselves with. This was the place where the royal family lived. It was essentially a fortress. Harry felt a headache coming on if he wanted to launch an attack from the outside. If they wanted to fight, Harry would suffer heavy losses. Harry would hate to lose his new army, but he was more worried about Jennifer. She had been managing these men for years. He would hate to make her look bad. Since he couldn't make up his mind, Harry could only surround and wait for his enemy to run out of food and water. However, it was hard to say how long the enemy could last. Places like this had lots of underground storage that they could have filled, which would mean that Harry would be sitting out there for years. Harry didn't know how long it would take for the council to reorganize or for his own men to turn on him. Just as Harry was trying to think it through, a scout brought even worse news. "Sir, we've spotted a group of tens of thousands of people heading our way." Harry stood up immediately. "How many people are there exactly?" About 50,000, the spies said. Harry's heart tightened. "Get our scouts out there. I want to know who they are." The sudden arrival of an unknown force made Harry think that it was a group sent by the council. After all, Egypt was an ally of sorts. In the end, the spies came back to report again, and the result made Harry half happy and half worried. These people were indeed here to rescue Egypt, but they weren't from the council. The council had been decimated by Harry, and they had yet to reorganize properly. Instead, they had paid some neighboring rebel groups to band together to save Egypt before Harry could take control. These new enemies weren't well armed, but their sheer numbers would be enough to take out Harry's army. With the rebels outside and the men inside Egypt's capital, they numbered 100,000 people. If Harry still maintained the siege on the capital of Egypt, then he would be flanked by the rebels. If he wanted to take down this huge fortress before the reinforcements arrived, it would be impossible for him to do so in a short period of time. "Should we retreat now? If we don't leave now, it'll be too late," Jennifer suggested. Harry shook his head. "No. If we retreat now, all our previous efforts will be in vain. We cannot retreat." "We can't win like this. We have to retreat," Jennifer said. Harry didn't want to retreat. He had an idea in mind. "Hurry up and make a decision. If you don't leave now, it'll be too late," Jennifer urged him. Harry smiled. "We can't leave." "What are you going to do?" Jennifer asked. Harry said indifferently, "I want to negotiate." "Negotiate? Who do you want to negotiate with?" Harry said, "With the rebels." Jennifer was stunned. She didn't understand what was going on. They were enemies. Looking at Harry's confident look, it didn't seem like he was joking. Jennifer was even more confused. She didn't know what Harry was thinking. "Send someone to negotiate first. Say that I want to talk to the person in charge," Harry said. Immediately, one of his men volunteered to negotiate. A moment later, he brought back the news. "Harry, the other side has agreed to discuss at the open field between us." "All right, I'll go now," Harry nodded. Jennifer quickly pulled him back. "I'll go. We need you here and we can't take the risk. What if they try to trick you?" Harry shook his head. "I have to go. Don't worry, with the power armor on me, no one can hurt me." After saying that, he walked over. Jennifer stomped her feet angrily behind him. She had no choice but to follow him. She wanted to follow him and see what Harry was trying to keep from her. She originally thought that the rebels would try to trick him, but they actually looked like they wanted to talk. However, after seeing Harry, his attitude changed. "You're Harry? I'm the leader of this merry band of men. What would you like to talk about?" The person who spoke to Harry was a young man. His attitude was very arrogant. Harry smiled faintly. "I heard that you've been friends with Egypt. This has nothing to do with you." The leader didn't want to answer. "I think it does. Did Egypt promise something for your sacrifice, or did the council promise something, or are both sides trying to pay you?" Harry said. "I told you it has nothing to do with you," the leader said impatiently. "Ha! How could this have nothing to do with me?" Harry still smiled. "What exactly are you trying to say? Why don't we just start fighting? I was told that talking could be fun. That proved to be a lie." Harry waved his hand. "Don't be in such a hurry. We will fight, but you have to think about it carefully. Fighting Egypt will be more worth your time than fighting me." The leader, Jake, was a little confused. "What do you mean?" Harry saw that he was about to take the bait, so he smiled. "Whether it's Egypt or the council, I think that there's a limit to what they can give you. Why don't you take advantage of this opportunity to take down Egypt?" Jake burst into laughter. "Ha! You think I'm a 3-year-old? You've already taken them. We'd end up fighting anyway." Harry laughed as well. "But I only wanted to take revenge on them. I don't want to occupy this place." Jake suddenly stopped talking, and his face became serious. Are you serious about what you said? Of course. I'm sure you already know who I am. Why would I stick my neck out for a place like this? Once I've done what I need to do and taken care of the people who've wronged me, I'll leave. They'll be helpless, and everything here will be useless for me. Jake instantly understood. He finally understood what Harry meant. He scratched his head and said, "But in this way, wouldn't I become a villain and would make a few enemies?" Harry shook his head and said, "History is written by the victors. You take over, and history can be whatever you want it to be." Jake immediately laughed out loud. "I like the way you think." "Ha," Harry laughed out loud. "But I still can't believe you. How can I be sure that you aren't playing tricks on me?" Jake pulled his face down again, questioning Harry's intentions. Harry said, "How about this? There's only one fortress left in Egypt that is still resisting. I'll attack that from the east. You take your men to the west to attack. We'll take them down from both sides at the same time. After that, everything will belong to you. I only need the prince." Jake thought for a while and nodded. "All right, I agree with what you said. Let's do it your way." After saying that, he turned around and left. When he returned, he started to gather his men. Jennifer, who was standing next to Harry, was stunned. She couldn't understand what he was doing. She was even more impressed by Harry and his diplomacy skills. "Cousin, you're really good at this," Jennifer sighed. "It's easy now. He likes money, and I just handed him the keys to all the money he could never spend." "Are you so sure? What if he pretends to agree and changes his mind later?" Jennifer didn't quite believe it. Harry smiled and said, "He's an idiot, but not that stupid." Sure enough, after Harry returned to his camp, he transferred his men to the east side of the fortress. On the other side, Jake didn't change his mind or tried to go against Harry. He followed Harry's suggestion and led his men to surround the other side of the fortress. Inside the fortress, the people inside shouted excitedly when they saw the reinforcements. However, their supposed reinforcements stopped short of Harry's men. They surrounded them, and their cheers stopped. They began shouting at their former saviors, calling them all kinds of names and spitting curses. However, after they had finished shouting, they knew that there was nothing more they could do. A red signal shot into the sky. This was the signal that Harry and Jake had agreed upon. They started attacking at the same time. Egypt knew they were finished. With a pincer attack from both sides, the entire fortress exploded into pieces. The losses were exceptionally heavy. Harry didn't send all his men. Instead, they only pretended to be fighting, but were really waiting for Jake and his men to do all the work. Right now, his heart was filled with ambition to conquer all of Egypt, so he put in extra effort when fighting. Seeing his performance, Jennifer almost swallowed her tongue. "Are we just going to watch them fight like this?" Jennifer asked.